Hey guys, so today I'm just going to take you through a quick workflow thing between Blender and Fusion so you can see how to get your renders out of Blender and into Fusion, and just to do a quick sort of rough composite on it so you sort of understand what's going on and why. I actually had to re-upload the video for this bit because I realized afterwards someone pointed out to me I didn't actually include how to add new render layers to a multi-layer EXR. So to do that, because obviously Blender can render out different passes for different things, like ambient occlusion and that's when compositing comes in. So to do that, you go to your render layers tab. You'll have one render layer here by default. I'm not going to go into how to use these, but what I will draw your attention to is this passes subpalette. So if you add a new render layer, by default you only have combined and Z, which is the combined color layer and the Z depth layer, which is used in compositing as well. But in this one, I've actually ticked a few other boxes. I didn't use the environment one for the composite in this, but ambient occlusion is what we'll be compositing on later. You can get a shadow pass, indexes for objects, materials. The vector pass can be really handy for compositing motion blur, things like that. So obviously, all of these passes have a use, depending on what you're doing in the composite. But the important thing to know is to activate new ones, and ambient occlusion is really important for adding realism to your final render. You go to the render layers tab, select your render layer, and come to this passes subpalette, and that's where you can enable or disable different passes that will come out in the multi-layer EXR. So we're going to do a render of this little scene I've done, which I've already done a rough render to sort of show you what it'll look like. And what we're going to do is we're going to take out the combined pass and the ambient occlusion pass as a single file, and then bring them into Blackmagic Fusion 9. So to do that, this is how I usually do it for stills. There are different workflows for animation and that, which you'd save out using the compositor for passes that aren't multi-EXR or things like that. But we're going to use the OpenEXR multi-layer format. So it's good to set this before the render. I don't think it works the same if you set it after. But if we come down to our output tab in our render tab or output subpalette, you can change your file format here. I like OpenEXR multi-layer because it fits everything in a single file, which can be quite useful, but they are large files, so you may want to work with PNGs or something and render out separate passes for that. So we'll use that, everything else has been set, then you hit render and you get your image. So we'll come down to image, save as image, and you can save it as whatever you want here. I've already done these earlier, but this is a sort of low sample one, so we won't worry too much about that. And when you go down here, it'll show you what your file format and everything is. You do want to be in one of the lossless ones, I think. I don't think the lossy ones carry the layers across correctly, but as you can see, that single frame is a 35 megabyte file, so they're not small. But once that's rendered, you take that out into Fusion. There's a couple of ways to get files into Fusion. You can either add tool, and it is, I actually haven't, there we go, IO loader. So you can make a loader and open your file that way, or you can just bring it in by dragging it from Windows Explorer or whatever. So we use the loader, and if you tap 1 or 2, it will show up in your views up here, but it has to have something in here first. So if you go to the format here, you can select what each channel is, which is, these are the different layers from the OpenEXR format. So for this one, we'll want the combined, so we'll grab green, blue, and alpha. Let's turn that off, and Control F to fit to window there. Now what we might want to do is if you hit Control Space, it'll give you a bunch of, a search thing for the tools. This is how I usually use it because I know them. I'd use the gamut, put that to 1 and change that because OpenEXR will just give you a linear color space, which obviously, is great for compositing, but no good for working in or sort of looking at and viewing. So these format things are quite important. As you can see here in the combine, under red, if we click that, we've got the combined red, but we've also got environment, shadow, and AO, which is our ambient occlusion. So to use that, we will want to copy that, Control C, Control V, click on that and make a merge node. This is another way to bring in nodes. So the three ways you can add tools, control space and type it in if you know what you're looking for, and there's some common nodes up here. So we'll use that, connect that as the background and that as the foreground. And you can see here, if we set this to ambient occlusion, we get that. And then we can change that to multiply. And there we go, we've got our ambient occlusion. So I'll just quickly do a bit more to that. Cool. So once we're ready to output, then just a quick comp on that to make it look a bit prettier. Once we're ready to do that, we can go down to our last node, and up here we can create a saver, which is the same sort of thing. And that will tell us, what we want to save our thing as. If you include the file type in there, then it will set the output format and everything, which is good. It's probably the best way to do it. And obviously you can do the same thing here, creating saver, saver in there as well. Anyway, once we've done that, we can go to that, view what we're going to see coming out, which is going to be this image, and then you can hit render. For this, obviously, we just want one frame. So if we change this so everything is 0 down here, it'll just give us the one frame there. Render and start render. And then it will do its thing and render completed. So now if we open that file and I'll bring it over here, we've got that finished. That's sort of a nice quick comp brought from Blender into Fusion. So obviously you can use anything you want for that, Photoshop, After Effects. But that's how you would do it for Fusion, which is great for node compositing for things like animations and stuff like that. Anything a bit more complicated. So yeah, thanks for watching and good luck.